Morena, and welcome everybody to Council meeting of Monday the 8th of April 2024. Just a reminder in terms of health and safety, if the alarm sounds, we make our way out the nearest emergency exit, which is probably the one at the back there, and we assemble across the road from the council building and await instructions from staff. Just be aware, everyone, that the meeting's being live streamed and the video will be publicly available on YouTube. And a reminder to turn your mobile phones onto silent or off, please. Shad, can I ask you to open with a karakia?
Nā koe Anne, huria kia tātou katoa i ngā manuhiri, kua tai nei I tēnei ata, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Nō reira kei noi tātou. E te atua nei rā mātou huitahi nei tēnei ata, ka tuku rā ngā whakamoemeti ka whakawhetai ki a koe, nō reira toro mai rā toringa ka hakirungi a mātou. Ai āwhina hei tohutohu nei I a mātou rotu I nei wā. Nō reira tēnei mātou ina tēnei ki a koe, kororo ki taunga tapu. Āmeni.
Thank you. No apologies this morning. No one in the public forum. We have no late items? No, we have no late items. No confidential business to be transferred into the open and no change to the order of business. No. Okay, that brings us to the minutes of the council meeting held on the 18th of March. Any corrections to the minutes? Bill's moving, they're a true and correct record, and Stephen seconding. Any further comments? No, I'll put those. All those in favour say aye. Against carried. Any declarations of conflict of interest? No. That brings us to the petition. This was presented in a clinic by Jan Neal. I understand we have Jan and Rebecca joining us via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yep, we can hear you. Thank you for joining us this morning. Would you like to speak to the petition?
Yes, so we've had ongoing issues with Papamoa Beach Road in terms of speeding and noise issues. This has been going on since 2018, and I've been onto council for about 18 months now, speaking to Warren Budd about it in terms of getting some speed cameras, fixed speed cameras down the road, section from Domain Road to Palm Beach Boulevard to reduce speed and to drop the noise. Now, this section of road is a lot noisier than the rest of Papamoa Beach Road because we have a bank opposite along the edge of the campground, and the noise from the road hits that bank and comes directly back into our backyards. Now, we've got a few solutions. As I said, putting fixed speed cameras, planting the bank and flax bushes to absorb some of the noise, also changing that section of road from chip seal to asphalt. So those are our options because, like I said, we have a mobile speed camera that sits down here from time to time, and he's been picking up 350 to 400 people speeding per session, and the fastest has been 90 km an hour, which is totally unacceptable.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that as well. Hi, everybody. The congestion issues, which is a result, we believe, of the development and the density around Papamoa East. And I know that if we go back to 2018, residents were concerned about that back then because the state of the roading infrastructure is not really suitable for the increase in the number of commuters. So the residents down that end are using our road to travel to work every day. And I know you guys spent millions of dollars with the big highway. We don't believe that that's being utilised. Instead, that Papamoa Beach Road's being used. We're also aware of the fact that there's quite a few elderly people down here as well. And there's also retirement villages, there's bus stops, there's young children. So the stretch of road's really wide, which means people are flooring it on that corner. So there's the speed, there's the congestion, and then there's issues around road safety. We spent maybe half an hour getting some signatures,
Yes.
and we got 42 in a really short amount of time. So there's a lot of residents down here who are pretty upset and have been for a while. So we're in the process of also setting up an advocacy group for the people around here to support them, especially some of the more vulnerable people. So yeah, we'd like to see some sort of solution. And I mean, my personal opinion is that we get judder bars down here, exactly like what you've done down Mount Maunganui, to deter that speeding, and that we get the asphalt put down as well, and that will help with the noise. And I don't know, like how we do something where you can actually bring the people to actually use the highway instead of using Papamoa Beach Road as their main route into Tauranga City.
That's correct. Yeah, Pat Beach Road should be just the connection road, and that should flow onto the motorway, as Rebecca said, and that's all it should be, a connection road. It's not a highway or motorway, and the volume of traffic that we're getting down here needs to be cut.
Including trucks.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. And all of those points we discussed during the clinic. So I pointed out, look, the staff will take the petition away now with the points that you've made. But I think I've already had discussions about the cost of asphalt, and yes, we can do that, but it is an extra cost and it would be levied against the ratepayers for the stretch of road. We've had that request from various people across the city. So I did explain to Jan that if those people in that area that would like the asphalt are prepared to pay for that, it's quite expensive, then we would be happy to facilitate that. So that's some work that you can do in the background. Certainly I've got a meeting coming up with Barbara from Spaces and Places to talk about the possibility of planting the bank to try and absorb some of the noise. As you suggested, Jan, that might be a community project, but we've got a meeting coming up this week. And then the third issue around the use of the Papamoa Beach Road, it is an arterial road, but you're right, at the time that the Eastern Link was built, the Papamoa interchange was not completed as part of that. We're currently completing that now, so within 2 years it will be completed. Chief Executive, is it 2 years? Yes. The Eastern interchange. And one of the suggestions that we have is once that's complete, as Te Tumu starts being developed, that we put a bylaw in to ensure that the trucks use the TEL going backwards and forwards during the construction of Te Tumu and Te Okaroa Drive as well, to try and reduce the traffic on Papamoa Beach Road. But Papamoa Beach Road is still a significant arterial that allows people to get from Papamoa through to the Mount and to the city. So I don't think we're ever going to go back to that as a normal residential street. And then the fourth issue is the speeding, and I understand that Nick isn't here, our roading manager isn't here at the meeting, but I understand, as I explained to Jan, there are discussions going on with the police for some ongoing policing of speed. To hear that traffic is on a 50k road doing 90k is unacceptable, and you're quite right, it is dangerous. So we do need some active policing in that area. So that's just a quick summation based on our conversation a couple of weeks ago, Jan, but we'll come back to you with a wider response to the petition. Any other questions from the commissioners for Jan and Rebecca? You've covered it well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Okay, and of course, it's not the section of Papamoa Beach Road that needs completely rebuilding. It's another section. Yeah, so we've still got those people complaining too. All right, so that process will unfold over the next couple of weeks. Yes, can we have a motion then to accept the petition? Thanks, Bill, seconded by Shad. And to the staff involved, can we have something as soon as possible, please? I think Barbara, you and I are meeting this week anyway. It's on the list. Okay, I'll put that motion to receive the petition and refer it to the staff for comment. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. That brings us to our council-controlled organisational 6 monthly reports. First up is BDL. Chad. Oh. Good morning. Nick, nice to see you. Oh, Sanjana, did you want to, you're looking splendid today in your bright colours. Would you like to take us, did you want to make any comments first? No? Okay.
That's Marty here, and yeah, good morning. Firstly, apologies from Simon Clark, our board chair. He couldn't make it today, but Nick Lowe, one of our directors, has stepped in and will join me for the presentation. Hopefully this all works. Firstly, just wanted to highlight that it's been a really good first half of the year for Bay Venues. A lot of activity going on, working really closely with council on a range of exciting projects. So there's some good stuff that's happening. We do have some financial challenges which we've made the Commission aware of, and that will be addressed with the new funding model that's been reset from 1 July. So just wanted to highlight that heading into things. In terms of community outcomes, we're really delivering as expected, particularly across the visitation. We're ahead of our budget, and that's slightly ahead of where we were last year as well. And our revenue and customer satisfaction ratings are sitting in about the same place that they were last year, or ahead of last year. And then it's just the EBITDA that we are struggling with a little bit, but we are expecting to be on budget at the end of the year. So that we'll make sure that we're there at the end of the year. A few highlights that we just wanted to bring forward. A lot of really good summer events that have happened. Particularly wanted to highlight the New Zealand Festival of Squash, which ran for about 10 days at the end of last year and is a fantastic event and got some good exposure internationally for Tauranga. We worked closely with Council Tourism Bay of Plenty to make that happen, amongst a whole range of other events that are ongoing. We've also done quite a lot of work in the diversity and inclusion space, and there's a whole range of initiatives, and I'll probably touch on them shortly. One of the key challenges has been from an economic perspective, just knowing that the economy is harder at the moment, particularly in our event business. It has put some pressure on, and we're seeing that flow through into slightly lower catering spend and things like that for some of our larger events and dinners and things like that. So we're working hard to keep up with that one. And then there's a breakdown there that you can see in terms of where the visitation goes across our core areas of our business. Few projects, just wanted to highlight the Mount Hot Pools that we did a maintenance closure for that towards the end of last year. We reopened in October, completely retiled all the pools for the first time since the early 1990s, so it was well overdue. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to get along and have a look, but it's looking fantastic, and there's been a lot of really positive feedback. The cost of that project was 2.6 million, but a good investment to make sure that it's going to be delivering for the community for the long term. Other projects that we're working on at the moment, looking very much at how we drive the most capacity and utilisation of our venues, and that flows through in a number of different areas. So you can see there, we've also increased the capacity of the 3-court arena at Bay Park. So now we can get up to 6,000 people in there in a general admission standing mode. That was used for the first time for New Year's Eve, a concert, which went particularly well. So that's a smart way that we've been able to do that, just by adjusting how we manage people around our fire systems and things like that. So no significant cost in that, but we've been able to get extra usage in there. We've also got a new partnership with Ticketek, who will be ticketing most of our events moving forward, and that will be able to help drive extra activity into our venues as well. Some quite cool stuff in the community initiative space there, using the stadium lounge as a kapahaka rehearsal space, We've had a number of swimming initiatives, both for our Korean, Muslim women and transgender communities, which has been really exciting to see. And also looking to use our facilities in different ways. So we've put some badminton lines into the Gretton Hall. So obviously not at a high performance type level, but for our community groups, they're able to use that space in a way that it hadn't been used before. And you'll note we've got a comment there around the aquatic network. You're well aware of the challenges we've got with Otamotai Pool and Memorial Pool. And obviously that sparked some conversation with the community, particularly at Otamotai, around what happens to that facility moving forward. So we're working with that community to understand what their aspirations are, make sure we fully understand the challenges around the existing facility so that we can see what options there will be moving forward. So that's an ongoing live conversation. Some other key projects that we're working on that you'll be well aware of, and Kim may touch on these as well, given that they're being run largely by the Te Manautaki board. The Cameron Road Indoor Sports Centre, I won't get into the detail on these because I think you're well across that, but I just wanted to highlight what a good piece of business I think that move has been, and we're really excited about being able to open that at the end of this year and have very little to no downtime with the closure of the Queen Elizabeth Youth Centre. So that's really exciting. And likewise, really happy to be working collaboratively on the Memorial Aquatic Facility. The Bay Park Master Plan work is continuing on that, and there's again some live conversations with key stakeholders around that, and good engagement with Speedway and also with netball, which we need to keep having those conversations to be able to figure out those next steps there, but that's all progressing. There's an image of what the new Memorial Aquatic Facility will look like based on the latest plans. So it gives you a flavour of what we'll be able to get moving forward. And again, I won't go into the detail on that. In terms of our people, I'm really proud to say that we're building a strong culture within the organisation. We did our annual engagement survey at the end of last year. We were up 4% in engagement, and what I'm most proud of, and you'll see the comments there that over 80% of our team are really proud about working for the organisation and happy to recommend that as a great place to work. So that says that we're heading in the right direction. You've probably heard us talk before about some of the challenges we've got around antisocial behaviour, and that is continuing. It is still a challenge. And we keep working on that. What we've done in response to that, as well as having security staff in our venues at peak times, we've also done a program where we've used a train the trainer approach, and our team have been working through antisocial behaviour guidelines, so making sure that our staff know how they can respond to things and what the right approach is to that, and that's been really well received. So we're pretty excited about that, and also growing our facilities team to basically cope with the increased maintenance and compliance program that we need around our facilities. And finally, before I hand over to Nick, just wanted to highlight a piece of work that we've been doing with some support from Council around understanding the value of our facilities. So in a normal business sense, you look at profitability. What we do is a lot around the social, cultural and economic benefits of what we do. This piece of work is a bit of a trial in many respects. It's new. We're the first organisation in the country that we are aware of that are tracking things in this way. It is a very technical measure, so don't get too bogged down in that. But what we are going to be doing is tracking this over time to see how it moves and adjusts. You can see that things have shifted a little bit here. So things like in the aquatic space, when the hot pools closed, that then has an impact on where the aquatics network is sitting because it's not delivering the same benefits. But we will track this over time. We'll tweak it as we need to, and there's a set of assumptions that sit behind it. But just wanting to show that we are trying to measure and assess the value of the community facilities that we operate and the greater benefit of that. As long as we're sitting over one, then we're showing that there are a lot more benefits coming through than costs. And just also want to point out this is done on a very conservative basis. So we haven't tried to put extra multipliers or things in that you sometimes hear about with economic impact assessment. And this is based on more of that treasury cost benefit analysis modelling. So just to show that that's there. I'll hand over to Nick for a few comments from the board.
Thanks, Chuck. Morning, everybody. Yeah, just a few comments from a board perspective. We've given you some nice mugshots of all of the board in there, so you could say they're all here in spirit. But just a few things I'd comment on. We recently, back end of last year, underwent a review of the board performance, which came out pretty well. I think we scored in the upper quartile of all organisations in terms of the way we were working together, which is pleasing. And the external facilitator said, yes, we did mark ourselves fairly in doing that. So that's good. And in that regard, I know that there is consideration being given to extending terms for Julie and Jeremy and Gareth, and that will go through due process and will be resolved in due course. But I think that's good, because I think we've got a good and complementary group of people there overseeing Bay venues. I'd just like to refer back to one comment, one part of Chad's presentation, which is the area of community initiatives. I think the organisation is doing a really good job of trying to be particularly inclusive around all sorts of community sectors and activities. I think that was one of the requirements from the commissioners, quite rightly, that we aim to do that, and I actually think we're succeeding really well in terms of the sort of variation and different activities that we're now providing. Just like to thank commissioners for their support over this period in question, and indeed over the 3+ years that we've been working together. We really appreciate that. The board really appreciates that. And I particularly just call out the funding reset from next year, which we think is really important in terms of sort of resetting the organisation, where it stands and where it will perform going forwards. And I suppose the final comment I'd make is that we are preparing, as I think comprehensively and diligently as we can, for the upcoming change in governance. We put a lot of effort into a comprehensive briefing document, which hopefully can explain a lot about Bay venues and where we've been and where we're going and why we're doing what we're doing. That's come through from management up to board. We've reviewed it several times. So I think we're certainly going to put our best foot forward in terms of how we aim to inform people about us. Probably all the comments I'll make at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick and Chad. First of all, thank you to you, Nick, because you were sort of the last remnant of the last board, and we appreciate the fact that you've stayed on, and we've had a bit of that continuity and knowledge throughout. So do appreciate that, and congratulations to the board on the 6 months activities to date. Really pleased to see that diversity in the community activities. I think it's something like 20% of people who live in Tauranga were born outside of New Zealand. So it's really important that the organisation, both yourselves and us, cater for that wide diversity. I know the citizenship ceremonies that I conduct every month, there are always 17 to 20 different countries represented. So we have quite a diverse population. It's really good to see those activities and the effort that you're making to get better use of the existing facilities. I've got a couple of questions. One, I read about your expansion of your ability to host greater numbers. What did you actually do? Was it just a policy change, or what did you actually do?
It was to do with the fire engineering reports and how we managed it, and it was really like the facility was always able to cope with the number of people. We didn't have to change any egress points. It was really just adapting, I think, how we operated our fire systems in the event of an emergency. So a relatively simple solution. A few, reports and work from consultants to make sure we could do that and do that safely. But yeah, relatively straightforward solution in the scheme of things.
I note your comments on losing a lot of water from the memorial pool. Has that been resolved?
My understanding is that the team said that when they fill that pool up, apparently they have to fill the void underneath the pool before they can start filling the pool. So that's the challenge that we have with an old facility like that.
All within a pool. What effect are you concerned about the review of the school lunches? I see you're branching out into providing an alternative opportunity for the RSE workers, but what effect would that review at its worst have on your balance?
It would have an impact, but not as significant as it might have had in the past. When the program first started, it did generate some quite good returns. Over time, as some schools have dropped off that program for us and they're doing their own provision, we're not doing quite the same volume of business that we were originally. So yeah, it would have an impact on our bottom line, but not significant. I'd probably be more concerned around the impact on there would be if that program was discontinued, there would be staff that would need to be made redundant. That would be the challenge with that. But we're hopeful that the government will continue the program and is looking for efficiencies, and we've reached out to them to offer to support them in doing that.
Very politic, very politic. And then my last question was really around, I was really pleased to see your benefit cost ratio. How are you getting the value of how are you calculating the value to residents? Enjoying the facilities.
We actually went to a company called Fresh Info, who do a lot of work in the recreational and event sector, and they run a model that I know councils signed up to called Event Economics, and they've used some similar principles around that. What they've done is they've looked at a range of different factors, and I probably don't have the time or the brain capacity to go into all the details behind it, but they look at things like the value of people's time, which they use data from New Zealand Transport Agency, Waka Kotahi around. They value people's time at something like $11 per hour. So they use that as a factor. If people are then attending, either events or activities, the amount of time that they spend there then will get factored by that $11, which gives you a value. So, there's some smart things that are being done in behind using assumptions that are already set. And then we've made some other assumptions around that as well, based on the number of visitors coming into the city from outside of Tauranga and how many days they're here. So then there's some factors that sit in that as well. So there's a range of different things that sit behind it. It is quite a technical measure, but a useful guide for us.
I think we're trying to arrange a meeting for us with the chair and yourself around the master plan. So I'm going to suggest that we leave your report lie on the table today until we've had those discussions. It's not that, I think you've had a really good 6 months, but I just think there's a couple of things we want to tidy up before we sign that off. So I'm being a bit upfront with you. Any other questions Bill?
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I just wanted a bit of clarification around some of your numbers. So you'd indicated there was a 13%, I think, increase in total visitors, but the budgets in terms of revenue 1% below. I wasn't much concerned about the 1%. But given there was an increase in visitation, I'm wondering why the revenue on the face of it hasn't also increased. I just want an explanation around that. Thanks.
Yeah. And look, I think that's in relation to budget that you're talking about, isn't it? Yeah. So to be honest, I wonder whether our budget may have been a bit soft on the visitation side of things. In terms of the revenue, I think one of the key areas that I mentioned with the economic challenges that we have at the moment, and we saw it through the first half of the year, in our more commercial operations, we are seeing a bit of a drop-off in some of the revenue coming through there. So things like gala dinners, where people might have been expecting 500 people to come to a gala dinner, we're finding we might only get 300 people coming to a gala dinner because people are buying fewer tables, that kind of stuff. Our base station operation, again, people going to paintball and things like that, there's a few less people coming through. And again, I think that's just cost of living pressures. People are choosing where they spend their money. So in our commercial areas, we're seeing less revenue, but that's been offset by the revenue coming through from our pools and sports centres. So it's certainly helped in that respect.
Thanks, Chad. I just wanted to make a comment. I attended the basketball a couple of weeks ago, the Fly basketball team, and saw you there as well. It was a great event, I think, for a community event, for a local professional basketball team developing, I think, here. But I was talking to John Miller, one of the co-founders, about the use of the facility, which they love. For the use of the facility over 12 games. But seeing, 1,200, 1,500 people there through the event, I think was pretty cool. I mean, it's the first kind of professional basketball game I've been to. And no doubt I'll probably be back to watch some more. But I suppose the points I wanted to make was that from his perspective was that, the netball, probably use it, the professional netball, the Ferns, but the other, the Waikato Magic, and we might get 1 or 2 games a year, but to be able to use the full suite of the bleachers and having a large enough crowd to support local sport. That was one of the things that he mentioned to me is, if we get 12 games, 1,500, hopefully growing, that was the first game of the season, that would develop. And, given basketball's fastest growing sport, particularly for kids, there's a huge opportunity here, for a city the size of Tauranga, 5th largest, to have a professional team, I think is great for the future. So I just really wanted to commend you guys on that.
Thanks, Chad. I think we've worked pretty hard with the FI team to be able to make that happen. It's not the most financially positive arrangement you could have with an event, but we know that we don't have any other sports franchises who are based in Tauranga. Everyone else, we have to share them with another city somewhere. So we're doing our best to try and make sure that they can be successful and that they can grow their following.
Same comment that you've done. Really appreciate the work that you've done to support that, because it is in its infancy. But I have no doubt that we will reap the rewards in the years to come as that grows, and it will be much more financial. But we do appreciate the efforts you've made to accommodate that. Bill.
Just forgot to ask this question. Last year, there were the consideration in terms of use and fee charges in terms of facilities. Has there been any pushback or reduction across the suite of facilities that BVL have in terms of those fee increases? I was just interested in terms of, because we had some quite strong submissions around some of those increases.
Good question. Of course, we always get pushback on pricing. That's to be expected. No one ever likes it when they have to pay more for the same thing. I think, though, what we've seen is there's the odd group that may have pulled back in some areas, but for the most part, it hasn't impacted at all on our usage. And obviously, we've got a growing city, so there's always people wanting to take space up, and we're seeing that coming through.
Nothing more. Thank you very much. And as I say, we'll let it lie on the table. We'll have our meeting, and then it's nothing. We're only receiving them today, but I think I'm just a bit concerned that there's some stuff that should be in there that isn't in there. We might need to add it.
No worries.
Okay. Thanks. And thanks very much, Nick. Probably won't see you again, but that's because we're leaving, not you.
Oh, we might do.
But we really appreciated the work that you've done for the city, because you're not a Tauranga person, and you've done a great job for us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, I can see Rosemary and Sonia sitting there from the Tauranga Art Gallery. come on up. Very sorry I couldn't join you the other night, but I understand it was a great night.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present the Tauranga Art Gallery 6-month report. Firstly, I'd like to thank Bill and Shad for attending and presenting at our launch on the 26th of May, where we presented our very exciting redevelopment, but also launched our opening program, the new Medlicott Art Award, and our new patronage program. We had excellent press, excellent media coverage, both local with Sun Live, but also national, Radio New Zealand covering us extensively, North and South, and The Big Idea. And we're expecting further coverage over the coming weeks. Looking to our 6-month report, as you know, the last 6 months have been an interesting time for the gallery, with our main building being closed and opening our pop-up gallery, and the impact that both those events have had on our revenue and on our key performance indicators. So I'll hand over to Sonia to speak about that in a second.
Yeah, so we're just trying to get your presentation up.
Oh, I saw that.
Started off well. That's the technology here in this building. It's quite difficult.
Fortunately, I printed off. I went old school.
Hey,
Printed off a
sometimes.
copy. I think we're back up and running. Fantastic. Kia ora koutou, everyone. Yes, just to add to Rosemary, we had a really exciting launch of the designs for the new building to open early next year, and the room was absolutely fizzing. Nobody really wanted to leave afterwards, and it's just a really exciting time. It has also been an interesting year for us. The great thing is that whilst all this change has been happening, we have been pushing on BAU, business as usual, and still delivering excellent outcomes with our schools programs, our weekend workshops, our exhibition program. What I want to highlight here is that, interestingly, we've had over 70,000 people engage with an online art experience, and that's more than just clicking on Instagram or Facebook. That's actually watching a talk online or watching something live online, and it just goes to show that audience is more than those that just comes through the door. There's a real desire for resources and talks and experiences online, and that's an area that we're going to be really focusing on when we come to reopen the new building as well, how we can extend beyond the walls of the gallery into the virtual world. We've had some excellent highlights over the past 6 months. As Rosemary said, whilst we were delivering our program, we closed our building down and we relocated our collection. And whilst that's just one line in a report, it's actually a huge undertaking. And I want to thank Tauranga City Council for your support and assisting us to relocate and that collection off-site. In November, we completed our visitor engagement strategy, and that strategy, and I must thank Bay Venues here, they mentored our team to develop that strategy, and which has 4 focus areas around engaging experiences, attraction and retention, and that's an interesting one because that's really looking at how do we empower our visitors to overcome barriers before they even come through the doors of the gallery as well. So identify what those barriers to attending can be. Diversity and inclusion, and building and redevelopment. And that visitor engagement strategy is really shaping our exhibition program, but importantly, the experiences that we're looking to deliver for our audiences and how we communicate and connect with them. Our Māori engagement framework was completed, and I'm really pleased to let you know that Lotteries Funding just awarded us $60,000 towards the implementation of that framework, including a contribution towards a kaitohu toi Māori role that we will be establishing at the gallery as well. And so that's a really solid outcome from the development of that strategy. Just to add that alongside our exhibition program and relocating everyone from the building, we have been working at pace with Tauranga City Council and the architects to ensure that the building development and the design is all on track. As you know, we had some seismic challenges that we encountered, and we worked closely with the structural engineers and TCC to come up with a solution to move forward with the development. Looking to the coming year, we are focusing on working on a sustainable operating model, and this includes looking at our retail, our venue hire, our hospitality offerings as well. It's the new developed building opens up these opportunities for us. We're also looking at and have developed a paper that we presented to our board on ticketing as well, which I know was raised by the Commission last time we were here. We researched other like entities in Aotearoa and Australia as well, and looking closely into what options we have there. We're also going to be working, my team, whilst the main building may be closed, is working really hard on developing exhibitions and experiences. We actually work 2 years out. So it's not just our opening program, it's also what's happening the year after that, and wrapping around some really exciting experiences to deliver with those as well, from our new creativity centre, which is not only for our education program, but for art enthusiasts as well, so it can be used day and night by our community. I just wanted to take this opportunity that fabulous image there of what the new building is going to look like. On behalf of my board and my team, we wish to thank the Commission. It's been for your support, and look what we've been able to achieve, some fantastic community outcomes here for future generations to come. Kia ora.
Thanks, Sonia and Rosemary. It's been a long journey, but we're just about there. But that's going to look fabulous. That really is going to look like you are certainly part of Te Manawataki o Te Papa, and that was the goal from the beginning. It was a difficult journey for you in particular. I think the final straw when you found the seismic issues was just about, Rosemary, you must have been just about ready to pack up and go home. But anyway, just shows that there's more than one way to skin a cat. So just looking at your little coloured tags there, really the only one, because you can't get visitors if you're closed, you can't generate revenue if you're closed, you're trying your best to get as much revenue as you can in the door. The only one I was worried about was your outreach and holiday programs, which you've shown as target at risk, and yet you're having good success with the art bus, etc. So I just couldn't match up those two.
Yes, that KPI was actually set as we were coming out of COVID, and it was a way that the gallery could reach out to schools and community groups that weren't able to come into the gallery. And so our focus has been in getting people into the education centre and on site for that.
Okay, so is that a target? Is that a change in?
It has changed for our upcoming SOI.
Yeah, for the short term, but long term, still staying as a KPI?
No, because the focus will be getting people back into the gallery.
Okay, all right, okay. Any other questions for them? Yep, Shad.
I probably have the same question as Anne, but also wanted to compliment you guys on the update the other night, and it was great to see so many people there. I think excited about the prospect of the art gallery opening, but also thinking about day one with Darcy Nicholas and Maraea Tumutumu and those artists on stream now, to actually give people a taste of what not just the physical but also the experience of coming into the gallery. But it was a great job. It was a great event, a great way that you kind of drew the community in, those art enthusiasts, to be able to set a platform for when the art gallery opens. So I just really wanted to commend you guys on that.
Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you.
Probably just following on from that, in terms of, and this is looking ahead more than concentrating on the 6 months that have just passed, but in terms of that program and people understanding it a year out, and I think Sonia mentioned doing it 2 years, what feel do you have in terms of over time the potential growth then in art gallery visitation? I'm just trying to get a bit of a feel for looking ahead. Once it's all reopened, and you're taking advantage also of some of those potential commercial opportunities too.
In regards to growth through numbers through the door and commercial opportunities, there's some other factors that are also falling into place within the city centre, and that is the completion of other pieces of work within and around the city, and collectively it all adds up to the experience that we can offer, in particular our visitors to the city, and also attracting locals to the gallery. We are opening with an absolute wow program with our augmented reality experience, and then part of our visitor experience strategy is around that retention, especially with our local community, and drawing them back again and again. In regards to domestic and international visitors, as we said, our city is coming together beautifully every week. When you drive into town, it's looking better and better and better. And so we will be building and developing our programs and our experiences in particular to not only attract, but to attract return visitation.
Can I follow up on that? Because I was just trying to find the completion date for the exhibition centre. So I know we've sort of talked about, and I understand you're very focused on the gallery and its opening, etc., but you do work a long way out. Are you doing any work on when we have that exhibition centre being able to get some of those broader, bigger exhibitions into town? Is that something that you're starting to turn your mind to?
I meet regularly with Greg McManus, Director of Arts, Culture and Heritage, and also we have a programming leadership group with Rena from Bay Court and also Joanna from the libraries as well, to think about looking into the future and programming Te Manawataki o Te Papa. The exhibition centre creates an opportunity for the Tauranga Art Gallery to have a exceptional offering over 2 venues, and whether that happens every 2 years or something, it's a fantastic opportunity for us to have a wow moment.
And carrying on that conversation, that's also the opportunity for the ticketing side and potential revenue generation for the gallery. I'm just looking at your statement of financial performance, and you've had a good 6 months, which is really great to see. Your deficit much lower than you had budgeted. The forecast for the year, though, for the next 6 months, is it possible that you can carry on that performance, do you think? Because certainly your donations, fundraising and some of the revenue are well up and your expenses are well below budget. So, yeah.
At this stage, we're tracking really strongly, and we've been very frugal, and we've had to make some changes. We've been through organisational restructure as well, and we're conscious during this time as we transition to opening the new gallery to be cautious, and conservative around our expenditure.
Seems to be working. Well done.
Sorry, I just had another thought. Just thinking about the last presentation we had from Bay Venues in there, and Chad's the cost benefit analysis that he's managed to develop. That's quite useful for them. I kind of wonder whether there's an opportunity there to maybe leverage off some of the work that they're doing to maybe apply something similar that works for you. Around the visit experience and the revenue side of things to try and capture, how you're tracking from a cost benefit perspective.
We both want to talk. Yes, absolutely, and I'd be very keen to pick up that korero with Chad around fresh info. I think it'd really help to reinforce the decisions that we're making as well. I just wanted to add one more thing, and coming back to your earlier question about outreach programs, and that whilst we will be closed for a certain period of time, we're actually developing online education resources for our teachers and our community so they can continue to deliver programs in class that are supported.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Really good 6 months, and the next 6 months going to be pretty exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And thank you to the commissioners and to TCC staff who have been amazing support for us over the last 6 months. It's incredibly appreciated. So thank you to you all.
Thank you. All right. Tourism Bay of Plenty. I see Oscar and Russ there. And who else have we got? Richard, is it? Yep. Welcome. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Kia ora tātou, I te tuatahi kia koe Shad mō tō whakatūwhiratia i tēnei hui, tēnā koe, me ki rea i tērā kaunehera, kei te haere tonu tērā rangatira, nō reira kua whetirangi tia, haere atu rā, me ki kia koe te tumu whakarai, tata katoa nā mana hautu, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Kia ora, everybody. Just want to acknowledge Shad for opening and also acknowledge the passing of Richard Crawford last week, who went along to his service. It's amazing when you attend things. I was saying to my chair on the way here, you genuinely feel that someone has spent a life serving. And it was really resounding in that community that he serves in terms of Te Puke. So I just want to acknowledge him, and obviously Marty and the executive and yourselves. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present our 6-month report. We're going to do a little bit of a tag team. We haven't had a run through, so we'll see how it goes. But I suppose I'll start with a little bit in terms of, it was a really busy 6 months to December. And, maintaining our business as usual amongst everything has been a challenge, but one that I'm really extremely proud of the team on. So again, our business as usual channels around that domestic and events marketing, our international trade and operators, keeping going with the eyesight servicing, and we relocated during that period. We relocated from one the Strand to 1 Devonport, so the old Minuteman building corner, which visually is really useful from an eyesight perspective. But to echo some of the challenges that Chad and his team are facing is when you do have front-facing, public-facing sort of venues, you do start to realise that there is a change in some of the and the mannerisms of the people, that the patrons that can just easily find their way to a service counter. So we're also sort of dealing with some of that as well. And then also continuing our program around our horticultural provenance, environmental sustainability and cultural storytelling, all of which is covered off in some of the key projects. It's also been a busy period to keep up with the pace that you have set for council. Respectfully, Commission, in terms of all the action investment plans relating to major events, cycleways, spatial planning, and Te Manawa-taki o Te Papa. So it's been a really busy time. One of the great things is we've also managed to spread our cloak of Manaaki over the Tauranga Art Gallery team, so they're now part of us in our office, whilst the changes happen to the art gallery, which is exciting. So very excited to present this report. Okay, on the first slide, essentially, in terms of our midterm scorecard, a couple of things there. Our social well-being, or the propensity of the pulse of what the community sentiment is to tourism. The metric there is showing our performance unachieved so just so you're aware, the way that pulse works is it's done quarterly. So this covers the first 2 quarters. I can say the 3rd quarter came in bang on target. So, and we've still got 1 4th quarter to come in. So we're expecting, if that trajectory continues, then we should be achieving that metric there in terms of resident sentiment to tourism. Our environmental wellbeing and our program around the green room, as at the year end, we were just tracking towards that goal of 100. We can confirm that we've got 101. Fantastic. 101 locked in for the program, so that will be an exceed and achieved. And that will happen by June 30. The other one, in terms of our region cycleway program, as you're aware, we're constantly maintaining that. Both Tauranga City Council, Western Bay, and this year we included Whakatane in terms of some of their key cycle trails. So you have a very comprehensive booklet. We only produce 10,000 of those. They go ahead of every summer. And then ultimately that's the goal, because then you go to the digital format. And the great thing is, having purchased a second bike from Electrify, which is a shop in Mount Maunganui, the great thing is the cycle shops actually insert the brochure with the sales pack, which is fantastic. So that's the sort of use that we want, over and above libraries and things like that as well, and other public spaces. Our operator capability program, we're on track and exceeding there, and we've got quite a detailed sort of program of delivery and capability that we're working alongside the likes of Qualmark and Tourism New Zealand. Our business events, it's really important. So in terms of conferences is probably the better known term, but we're starting to really build on our bids and lead process, particularly as we go into the funnel of the developments for Te Manawa-taki and having some lead hotels. It's extremely important that we shake off the view that Tauranga has no accommodation or corporate accommodation, and we will be, fortunately this year, the business events conference meetings is being held by our neighbours over the hill in Rotorua. So that's the national conference, and we've worked quite hard to make sure we were both a bit miffed. Well, actually the Central North Island was miffed last year when we turned up to Wellington and we weren't exactly in the place we'd like to be, but given we're controlling the pen this year, the Central North Island will be quite prominent, and our whole pitch is to make sure that people are very aware that there is a developing Tauranga offering coming, and that is good for timing in terms of booking of conferences. Economic wellbeing spend monitors, I'll get Richard talk to that in one of the slides coming up. Our cultural wellbeing in terms of the work that we're doing across digital storytelling and such, I'll touch on that one. Our organisation wellbeing, we're due to get into that sentiment from our staff in April, May. So yet to report on that one. Flavours, we're right in the middle, started Thursday. And I'll talk to that shortly, but that's on a trajectory of growth. And then finally, in terms of our key markets and how we're promoting, we're continuing on with that work. This is where the chopping and changing happens. So I'm going to pass over to Richard.
Thanks, Oscar. Kia ora. So these next two slides are just looking at visitor spend broken down by domestic spend and international spend. I should mention at this point that this is just for electronic card expenditure only, so it excludes cash and online sales as well. So these figures to some degree are quite conservative. Looking at the domestic side of it, no surprise there in terms of what's happening in terms of an economic climate. So slightly down at 3%, but that's been well and truly offset by international spend. You don't see these figures very often, but up 55% year on year and up 68% pre-COVID in the 2019 period. So spend overall is tracking well, and this is largely due to the international visitors coming back. Yes. Back to you, Oscar.
Wait till the finish to ask questions, or do you want questions as you go through?
I prefer no questions, but happy to take the questions when you want to get. And it's probably more relevant for you to ask the questions at the right time. So happy to answer questions.
I was just going to. Do you get a clarification of that international spend? Is that from the cruise ships, or is it actual visitors arriving in town and staying for a period of time? Do you get that sort of breakdown?
We don't get it to that level, and that's the granularity of data and tourism for the sector nationwide continues to be a challenge, especially with Stats NZ disestablishing their commercial arm Data Ventures. But it's safe to say that really it's a combination of both cruise and other international visitors. Yeah.
Get some idea from the accommodation people too, wouldn't you? They because if you compared their stats, if you pulled out the accommodation payments, they would largely be either online or by credit card. You might be able to match.
This is generally spend in region, and I think you could say that a significant proportion would attribute to the retail spend from cruise ships, because you just have to look at the domestic line as well in terms of, and as Richard said, just repeating what he said, there's been a sort of a conservative look of, as we all know, we're in a cost of living crisis, so domestically people are tightening up their belts, but internationally. And I know that the figure that's being spent in other regions that have visitation from international similar to us, say the likes of Hawke's Bay and others, their international spend is quite significant as well. Yeah. So on cruise, so very quickly, the cruise season is about to come to an end. We've got about a week and a bit left. That would have seen us, so the target for the cruise season this year was 115 cruise ships. I think once we do the wash, it's probably down to about 112. That is related to both some weather incidents, i.e. if the weather's too rough, then the ships can't berth. And I think we had one, possibly two, but one I know of in terms of biofouling. So biofouling is probably the biggest issue that is facing the sector across New Zealand. And it's a big issue. The only board I'm on, as you're aware, is the New Zealand Cruise Association board. It's a big issue we're taking up with MPI and others, because again, as I've said previously, it's difficult for cruisers to maintain a level of support for New Zealand as a destination when the legislative requirements of biofouling or cleaning of the hull exceeds the two countries prior to you coming into international waters. So if you think about it, Australia and the US have biofouling legislation that is to a certain limit. New Zealand has gone ahead and set a higher limit. And that makes it extremely difficult because you have to clean before you technically come into New Zealand waters. So at the moment, it's a random selection process, which is making a lot of the ship captains quite nervous in terms of how that's being applied. But the current government now is really looking at, across the board really, is really looking at trying to make sense of a lot of the legislation that's come in. So we're working hard to make that happen. What that means in the interim is, in terms of forwards at the moment, there are a lot lighter or forward bookings for next season, and the season after they're a lot lighter at this time of year than what they would be until that issue is sort of rectified. But still, cruise is a massively significant part. That image you can see there is part of that resident appeal of cruise in terms of people going down there and really farewelling the cruise ships. But we're doing a lot of work in that space, and the team are, I'm really proud of my team in that regard. As I said, Flavours of Plenty won't talk too much about this. As at the end of March, 68% of tickets sold, 15 out of 39. All those figures have gone up now over the last week and a bit. But essentially, the platform of Flavours, to remind you, is really around us connecting the ecosystem of growers, suppliers, providers, restaurants and such. And the Festival of Flavours is really the celebration of that. And so we're really proud to have, as you can see in that little infographic there, the spread across the coastal bay of events that are taking place. And those are just the events. That's not the Plates of Plenty challenge. It's not the box that goes into a lot of the restaurants. That we've got restaurants across the region that are producing dishes that resound from this region as part of the festival as well. So that's something that's really building momentum, and happy to take questions now or later on. Flavours. Just the last slide from me before I hand over to the chair is just the other things outside of those slides. We're maintaining our operations with the eyesight, both at the inner city eyesight, the Mount and the port over the summer period. We've continued with our BAU around destination and visitor guides. We've spoken about the green room. Our destination storytelling, we got some great coverage from the media recently with Carlo around the performance of our app. It actually increased the downloads. That was great. But ultimately, and probably some clarity on that, which wasn't provided in that story, but ultimately the funding for us to invest in that actually came from MB, and it was around cultural storytelling and innovation. So I don't know how much closer we could have hit the mark on that. But anyway, international marketing is going ahead and progressing. Manawa Falls, the partnership there opened up this year. It did have a bit of a rocky start in terms of the operator, the joint venture partner did have a tie-up with getting into the cruise ships this season, which was extremely opportunistic. However, they'd only got a couple in, and then for whatever reason, that didn't sort of pan out the way it could. But to be honest, the experience, it was really around this summer using that to get the operation settings right. Next season is where that will kick in, and to get a very quick turnaround on the cruise ships is quite unheard of anyway. Native Nations is Indigenous tourism itinerary. Long story short, the challenge for Tauranga and the Bay of Plenty is to break the shackles of other regions that are more established in the tourism cultural space. What this is about is for us working collectively with operators across our region and others that are not so much on the golden path. And that's a real opportunity for us to grow that program. And we've had some great success with Tourism New Zealand, Air New Zealand and others in that space. Major events, we continue to work closely with Nalita and her team and a lot of that PR marketing and media. And so is our domestic marketing. We have made a conscious decision not to do above the line advertising. So you're not going to see Bay of Plenty tourism ads on TV or anything like that. It's just not the right environment, and money just doesn't go as far anymore. So we're doing a lot more digital programs and digital channels, but through our digital hosting and what we call influencers using their channels as well. Business events, we've spoken about that, but we're very focused on growing our lead generation and for mills. And yeah, final point, sharing the love with our Tauranga Art Gallery team. I'll hand over to our chair.
Morena koutou. The board's well placed at the moment. We've got a strong blend of trustees, probably the best we've had in my time. We've managed to entice a strong mana whenua rep, which has been a great addition. We're also supporting the IOD Future Director Program, and we've got a really impressive director who's come through in that in the form of Charles Russell. The board underwent an independent board review back in November, similar timing to Bay Venues, similar result. We've ended up with a great upper quartile outcome, which to get from an independent review is great. We have got some work-ons in there, which we'll continue to use to build the board's capability. In terms of other highlights through or key items for the board, we have held for a few years excess reserves. They were predominantly a result of government funding through the COVID period, and we have managed to work those down as requested. And so we're now sitting in a much better position come 23-24 in terms of what our standing cash reserve should look like to help us through a standard year. Finally, I guess from my point of view, it's just a thank you to the Commission. We've had a lot of support through a lot of change through a difficult time with COVID, and to then rebuild with everything that's going on. And you have been fantastic in supporting us in our journey of what we're trying to achieve. So thank you.
Look, thanks very much. Thanks, Russ, for that. Really, you're an organisation that everyone likes to talk to anyway. I think we're all fascinated by tourism and well aware of the fact that tourism represents new money coming into the economy. So it's always great when times are tough to see that new money coming in, because we know that our own residents are, tightening their purses, and so tourism always represents that opportunity. Russ, it's really good to hear your comments about the board, and it was good to see the performance review. I agree. I think you've got a really good board now. And I think on behalf of the Commission, we're very confident as you go into resuming the sort of normalcy of an elected mayor and council, that it stands the board in very good stead going ahead while that council's coming to grips with what it is to run a big city like this. But I think you've got a very talented board and a wide spread of expertise and knowledge, but also a good knowledge of governance. So allowing Oscar to do his thing and Richard. So congratulations on a great 6 months.
Thank you.
Yes, okay. All right, we'll start with Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I echo the Chair's comments, and particularly keen or happy to see the very strong focus that you now have on visitor spend and kind of the outcome, I guess, of all of the work that you're doing. The question that I have is, last meeting of Strategy, Finance and Risk, we had presentations from all of the Main Street organisations across the city. And what is very clear from there is that they too are very focused on getting data in around, pedestrian counts, visitor spend, their total turnover, and also a very strong message around telling a positive story, particularly for Tauranga CBD, whereas in the past, the focus has always been on the reasons why things weren't happening. And it might have been car parking or whatever, it was always the negative. And what they are very much seeking to do is to change that conversation around, actually, there's a whole bunch of really exciting things happening in our city, and things are on the up. There's always challenges, but actually let's focus on the opportunities rather than the challenges. And I just wonder, what's the strength of the relationship between TBOP and those organisations, and are we kind of working in sync? Because I think the more that they understand what you're seeking to do and vice versa, there could be a real opportunity there.
Thanks for that question. The reality is, I think as we get into the financial situations and everyone's sort of getting tighter, then you really start to realise the strength or the lack of strength in those relationships. So not just in the main streets, it also comes from other sort of areas as well. So to answer your question, we think it's pretty strong. We've got to, if you look at the last Downtown Tauranga's newsletter that just came out last week, you'll actually see a really strong presence. 3 things from Tourism Bay of Plenty in there. I need to acknowledge Gareth and his city tours. That's in there as well. I think we're really working quite hard to work with main streets. Myself and my destination management lead, Mary, met with Kendall from council around the Main Street contracts. We've looked at all the letters of expectation that you furnished to them. We've got a copy of their 6-month reports and their annual plans as well. We've also got a meeting set up for June, early June, that first week. That's when Kendall's advised us it's probably the best time to meet as they then prep their plans going forward. So we need to be real here without over-promising, but, you know, we have a remit from a region perspective and, you know, to a degree need to maintain a sort of Air Force One sort of level without getting too much on the ground. However, there are definitely opportunities for us to better collaborate and sing the praises and post out on things of significance, particularly around as the gallery comes back on board as well, and Greg and his work around the museums and things in the future. There's pockets of opportunities, and Christchurch City was a good example of that when they came back and built after the rebuild. They actually termed it pockets of opportunities or surprises that they had across the city. And I know their RTO worked quite heavily with them to do that. So we are working there. I don't, you know, as it gets tighter, I think there's nuances within each of those membership groups. We can only cater to so much of that nuance. But I think we're doing a pretty good job. Yeah.
Oscar, just interested in terms of the cruise study, and I look, it will be hopefully a very helpful piece of work, both in terms of what the perceptions are and the value proposition. So you note in the report that it's due this month. So what's the thinking of what happens next when the cruise study hits the deck?
Yeah. So first apology, it'll be next month now. That's just the way that things have sort of shifted. And yeah, so to the quick, cruise study partnered with Priority One, working through KPMG, getting that bunch of work done that is really around what is the value proposition and the key sentiment from key stakeholders around cruise. To answer your question, this is really an exploratory piece of work, but a comprehensive one to really get, actually after this meeting, Richard and I are shooting over to the port to sit with the port, and it's one of the first focus groups, literally shortly. And the idea is that we want to gather all this information. So then all that information's on the table. It'll inform 2 things. It'll inform a better structured conversation with residents going forward, because we've got a little bit of that in this one, but not fully. But it was more around the engaged stakeholders from a business perspective and other things that are engaged in there at the moment. And that will ultimately inform both residents and also a strategy going forward. So we're really clear that we didn't want to, we probably took a leaf out of the Commission's book, actually. We wanted something that wasn't a strategy. We wanted something that was really, what are the issues? Everyone owns the issues, and then collectively, and then respectively with the support of the incoming council as well. I think it's quite critical. It comes down to really one question. Where does Tauranga Moana see itself with cruise in the next 5 to 10 to 15 years? And that's a wider conversation than just Tourism Bay of Plenty setting up some visitor sort of cargo container sheds every season and such. It's a bigger question. Yeah.
Up on that, I'm assuming that the study that the council did on the rubbish is included in that?
Yes, one of the other focus groups is a TCC-wide conversation. Every department, every tentacle. I've got my views on the rubbish. I don't think.
Well, I think they've got good evidence on the rubbish.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Oscar. Probably following on, that's not the rubbish theme, but on the same thing, the cruise ships.
And then just noting in your report, and you also mentioned about things have adjusted this quarter coming, and then the last quarter. Do you think those, in terms of that sentiment, it's kind of seasonal? You know, that at particular times of the year, parts of our community might be more frustrated with tourists than, say, other times of the year?
Yep, I'll be careful how I answer this one. I think there is a degree of seasonality in it. I think there's also a degree of, respectfully, the manner in which the questionnaires are put out could sometimes be as attributable to other things that are going on with TCC as they are to genuine resident sentiment to tourism. And in regard to that, Richard's actually working with key people within TCC to see if we can we're actually up for the why question. So at the moment we ask the what question, you know, what is yours? But we're actually up for seeing if we can put into, from July onwards, a question that says, why do you feel like that? So then we can understand, is it actually a visitor sentiment thing, or is it to do with other things? So I think seasonality's probably got something to do with it, but I know from the feedback that we've had, particularly from a lot of the residents that live around the port, and our staff that have been there for 88 days or so, when there's cruise ship visitations that have been on, because you get double cruise ships, which brings the total from 115 down. It's been generally a really good season, very productive season. From last season, which was the first for 2.5 years since we had COVID, it's very much up on last season. So I think it's a bit of both. Yeah.
And, just my last question about the biofouling. And so you mentioned that, you know, the standards for Australia and the US are different to New Zealand. New Zealand's got high standards from a risk perspective, I suppose. Is that different to shipping, or is it the same for shipping, the container ships that come in?
It's interesting, Tansi, we're trying to get clarification on that. So we've been told in general it's similar to shipping, but it doesn't seem to be as rigorous with shipping from our understanding. But in fairness, the port would be in a better position to answer that question. I know from a cruise perspective, it's definitely been something that MPI has zoned in on with the cruise sector. And that's part of our issue, is to really, you know, have a transparent conversation, which part of doing this KPMG study is going to be useful. Because out of the total movements of vessels into the port of Tauranga, 94% of them are actually cargo vessels. It's only 6 to 8% that are actually cruise, but it's the cruise vessels that everyone sees. You don't see the cargo ships come in under the cover of darkness and then exit again. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Russ. We won't see you in a formal way again before we leave, but thank you. It's been a great partnership, I think, with Tourism Bay of Plenty. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. I can see Ms. Wallace at the back of the room from Te Manawataki or Te Papa. And you haven't got Mike with you. It doesn't look at all like Mike. No. It's Helen. Yep. Welcome.
Morning. Kia ora koutou. Great observation there, Anne. This is Helen Andrews. Thanks very much for time today just to present the 6 monthly financials for Te Manawataki o Te Papa. Just following on from my CCO colleagues, obviously our mandate is delivery of the projects, so that includes the Te Manawataki o Te Papa Site A, the Library Community Hub, the Civic Whare and the Museum and Exhibition Centre, also Masonic Park and the Art Gallery, and a number of projects along the waterfront from Dive Crescent through to outside our window here, and also Memorial Park, the Aquatic Centre and the indoor courts up at 483 Cameron Road. So that's the brief of this board, is to deliver those projects that council has approved. As you can see in front of you, for the 6 months ended 31 December, we have a total expenses incurred of $436,000, and that is funded via a grant from Tauranga City Council. So in effect, we have a break-even financial result for the 6 months. That's it that I was going to say for now. I just want to also note, obviously, there's a number of interactions that happen with the board and with the commission. So obviously outside this, we're also having informal catch-ups around the delivery of the projects that you've heard about from our clients, which preceded us here today. So that's Bay Venues and the Art Gallery Trust, and also T-Pop.
Very much, Kim. So just so that I understand how this works, because you're right, we do have informal catch-ups, and I would presume that as the construction takes place, you would continue those with the elected council. But would we expect to see the expenditure in these reports or in the council reports as the construction starts getting underway?
The answer is both, Anne. So in these reports here, the majority of the cost relates to salaries and directors' fees.
Yep.
So in the $414,000, that's 8 people that are represented there. So that's the 4 board members, a key consultant, and also those staff like our project director and other support staff who are working on the program of projects. When you look at the project managers that are assigned and working directly full-time on a project, their costs are sitting within the Tauranga City Council and within capital accounts for work in progress against those assets. So it's not quite the true cost of all the projects that are being undertaken in the city, because some of them are being capitalised.
Correct, yes. That's it. Basically, it's all just around the governance of the projects, not the projects themselves.
I thought it was quite important to clarify that, so that people didn't expect to see and hear the construction.
Certainly, and I think at year end, because this is the first time we've been at this table, Helen and I have been taking notes if we've been going through. We did not prepare a presentation, but we think at year end it would be helpful, particularly for elected members that are coming in, and for them to understand the breadth and the mandate of this board, that we do have a presentation and we do include things exactly like that. Thanks, Anne.
Okay, any questions for Kim? It's pretty straightforward.
I don't have a question, Chair. It was really just to acknowledge and compliment Kim and the board and those involved in terms of keeping us updated, the weekly update and all of that's really helpful, just in terms of keeping an eye on how progress is going, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and obviously with a new elected council, that will be very important going forward also.
I'll pass it on. Thanks, Bill.
The next, we're sort of entering now the really exciting part, aren't we, where piles will start coming up out of the ground and we'll start actually seeing some building and some construction happening. So I know there's a lot of people out in the community that just can't wait for that to actually visually take place. And we're very grateful to the expertise that the board brings to such a significant project, not just in size, but I think it's significance to the city. And as you would have heard from the CCOs, there's a huge sense of anticipation and excitement really about what the future's going to bring. So thank you very much. Please pass on. We will see your fellow board members, but we really appreciate the work that is being brought to bear to ensure that it's a success and that you're keeping to budget.
We are. And I think it'd be remiss of me not to also just thank and acknowledge, I know we will meet again before the end of your term, but I think formally acknowledging on behalf of the board the support and also the guidance and the direction that the Commission have given us, because we did have a rather steep learning curve, Marty, as we came onto this board and really getting to grip with the risks and the key goals of Tauranga City Council. So just want to express our thanks as well for that.
Thank you, appreciate it. Excellent. Okay, so then we have the trust. And we have Botpless, so Stephen's here from Botpless, but we also have the papers from the trust, the charitable trust. I do like the way that they are presented with that little heading at the top that says, you know, how it was funded. So that the actual sort of plain English for the non-accountants amongst us as to what these different pages in the financial report actually mean. I thought that was that's a really good touch. Sorry, Stephen, I saw you get to your feet and then sit down again, but come on up.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thanks for the opportunity to update you on the first 6 months for Botpless and the benefits that are being delivered to TCC and our other 8 shareholding councils as well. It's been a successful first half of the year for Botpless and ultimately for our shareholding councils with a number of new initiatives undertaken. You'll note that on pages 3 to 6 of our half-yearly report, there's quite an extensive list of projects there. I'm certainly not going to talk to all of them, but I just thought I'd use this opportunity to give an overview of some of our key projects and key successes. Just before I talk to those projects, I just want to remind the commissioners that Botpless is a very small organisation. We're 2.5 FTE. I'm the only full-time employee with the organisation. And I think given the savings we provide to the council, it's a very good return on investment for our shareholding councils. I'm going to talk to 5 of our key projects. The first one being Botpless Collective Insurance Program. Insurance represents a significant spend for our councils, and our collective approach to insurance has provided substantial savings, with the Botpless program saving our councils over 18 million in premiums since inception. Last year was 2.1 million savings in premiums for the council, so it's not an insignificant saving. And while the financial savings are important, being able to secure the right cover is imperative. And in the current insurance market, this continues to be quite a challenge, particularly with the placements for the underground infrastructure insurance. Due to an unprecedented high level of natural disaster claims across the globe, insurers have become more cautious in their approach to taking on risk, and they require a lot more information on how councils are managing their assets and managing their risks. So Botpless has taken a proactive approach to this by undertaking presentations directly to international and local underwriters last September to highlight our council's robust risk management practices and the resiliency planning that's undertaken within our member councils. This helped provide underwriters with more confidence in writing our business. And of course, this was particularly important this year, given the insurance impact from Cyclone Gabrielle. As a result of our proactive approach, we were again successful in securing all of the required cover across our councils and at competitive pricing. Other New Zealand councils outside of collective programs are struggling to achieve anything like this at the moment. However, we're aware that insurance placements for councils will only become more difficult and unfortunately more expensive. So we're working with our councils to review alternative risk transfer mechanisms and to ensure a strategic approach to insurance to better determine what actually does need to be insured, what could be self-insured, and whether we're using appropriate levels of deductibles at the moment as well. So it's a real strategic overview for councils rather than the traditional way of just rolling insurance every year. As mentioned earlier, the savings from the collective insurance program have been substantial for Botpless councils, and it's a program we continue to put a lot of effort into. Some of the other highlights, Boplas has been working with the Ministry of Social Development on projects to reduce youth crime across the Bay of Plenty region. As a result of this partnership, we've been able to secure $1 million of co-funding for our councils, and this is to help support development of crime prevention initiatives across the Bay of Plenty region. Initial work from this funding involves improved CCTV coverage for our communities and increased real-time monitoring of that CCTV. And these initiatives are being undertaken by Boplas in conjunction with New Zealand Police. Our half-yearly report mentions the work being undertaken by the Boplas Health and Safety Group. This group comprises of the health and safety managers across all of our councils, but also includes the health and safety managers from the CCOs. And I'd just like to highlight how successful this group has been, and they're a good example of beneficial collaboration. A tremendous amount of information is shared across this group, with best practice often being shared and established across the greater region. And there are a number of projects being worked on collaboratively. One of those key projects currently underway is the management of aggressive behaviour within public spaces, which unfortunately is a growing problem for all councils. This is an obvious project that benefits from shared learnings and collaboration to the benefit of all the councils. One of our larger projects is in solid waste management. Boplas is leading a combined Waikato, Bay of Plenty and Gisborne project for the establishment of a waste operator and licensing data system to manage all waste operators across the regions. This shared service will benefit councils and waste contractors by establishing consistency across the region and a more accurate reporting of waste streams. The Boplas Collective Aerial Imagery Program, which is for orthophotography and LiDAR data, has continued to add significant value and savings for the councils. The LiDAR data in particular was of key value during and following last year's major storm events. LiDAR allows us to create highly accurate 3D terrain and surface models across the entire Bay of Plenty region. And amongst other uses, this is vital information for flood modelling purposes and for understanding contours and water flows. Within that aerial imagery program, Tauranga is now flown on a 6 monthly basis to recognise the high growth and rapid changes within the area and to ensure that aerial mapping information remains current. So that's a quick snapshot of some of our key projects for the first 6 months. But as mentioned, there's an extensive list of other projects in the half-yearly report, and I'm happy to take questions on those in a few minutes. Besides the hard financial savings from Boplas projects, what is often overlooked is the reduced effort and resource savings for councils by having an entity that coordinates activity across multiple councils. Groups of councils working together through Boplas to undertake something once is much more efficient than it being undertaken separately within 9 different councils. Just to finish on financial performance, the company has been operating within budget. End of December, we're reporting a $45,000 surplus, but this was mainly due to timing of some of our projects, and we expect to finish the year close to budget. Happy to take any questions.
Stephen, we had the Minister Mitchell at the Bay of Plenty Regional Civil Defence meeting on Friday, and he is also he is meeting with, so there was a discussion on insurance. Is that, and he is meeting with insurance companies himself. Is that something that's flowing through to Boplas from the councils? Is that a conduit through to you, to your organisation?
Yes, it is, and we're cognizant of the work that's being done in that space. And I know that emergency management has been looking to Boplas to get a better understanding of how the insurance program works for them. So, yeah.
Any other questions for Stephen? Pretty comprehensive report, thank you. I think it's well worthwhile.
Right.
I think we encourage you to keep expanding the opportunities to work, for the councils to work together and share both information but also share processes.
Absolutely, there's no shortage of opportunities. So, yeah.
It's just getting the councils to let go, isn't it?
Sometimes, yeah. Right.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm proposing then is that we receive the report from Sanjana on council, the half yearly reports. And then we received Tauranga Art Gallery Trust, Tourism Bay of Plenty, Te Manawataki o Te Papa Limited, Te Manawataki o Te Papa Charitable Trust, Bay of Plenty Local Authority Shared Services Limited report, and the Local Government Funding Agencies report for the 6 months to 31 December 23. Bill, you happy to move that? Stephen, second. And I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. It's carried. And then that leaves Bay venues on the lying on the table. Do we need a motion for that? To leave it lie on the table? Do we need a motion? Okay. Bill, you're moving and Shad seconding to leave that lie on the table until after we've had discussions with them about the master plan. All those, moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. It's carried. Thank you. Okay. Adoption of Arataki concept plan.
Thank you. We've got Ross and Emma here to talk to their report. I think the approach is to take it as read unless the team want to add anything and respond to questions if that's okay with you.
All right. No, look,
Take as read.
good piece of work. Thank you. I guess the only concern I have, and I know my colleagues share, is we just want to tie in the whalers with the sports club. We just want to make sure that there's recognition, because it was the whalers who came and made submissions to us, understand that the sports clubs still have grievances about, you know, the demolition of their old building, but it's really, we just want to, in the recommendations, it doesn't make it clear that new facility would be a shared facility and that the whalers would be part of that. That makes sense?
So just on that, so the intention is that it's a sports facility that is primarily the home for Arataki sports. However, the two clubs are happy to work with each other so that they can have shared access.
Yes, I understand that. That's what the report says. But from the Commission's point of view, we want to protect the whalers because we think that their case is reasonable. So we think that it should be a shared facility between the sports club and the whalers.
Yeah. Just on that, so when we spoke to the two clubs about this, whalers are still exploring options that are not on Arataki Park, and potentially going back to their home, which is up by the Tamapahore Marae, and they are still deciding that as well. But if it is to be a shared facility, both clubs are happy to work with each other because they do have a shared need for that park.
So I think we're still wanting to make sure that that's the option is there, that the recommendations don't make that clear.
Madam Chair, perhaps if we had a resolution that left the door open.
That's right.
Should the whalers, something along the lines that should the whalers agree, decide to stay at Arataki Park, that will be a shared facility. Or some such words better than that Janie might come up with.
But yes, yeah. But essentially meaning that.
Is that okay, Guy?
Yeah, that's supported. The next steps will be to look at feasibility for a sports facility, and that can be one of the issues considered through that.
And hopefully whalers will have made up their mind by then. But I think we're very cognizant of the fact that they made submissions to us, and we just want to make sure that that's explicit in the resolutions.
To move the recommendations with that addition, Chair, and on the way through, just acknowledging the work of actually getting to this stage and having it in place for future and providing that guidance of what can be accommodated.
Well, you're moving with the addition of an F that basically should the whalers decide that they're going to remain on Arataki Park, that new facility would be a shared facility with the sports club. And Stephen will second that. Thank you. Anything else? No, I think you've done a great job in getting us to there. The only other question I had was about this. I never remember which accessible program it was, but we did have a cycleway going through the park, through to help. And it's one of those projects that's now dropped down in priority. Accessible streets, B, C, whatever, whichever one it is that comes up Granada Street and went through the park. You know what I'm talking about? That isn't shown here, but we haven't lost that altogether.
It is included on the concept plan. So if it's a pathway that runs sort of just behind the pump track from Granada Street. So it's shown on the plans. It's just that the funding obviously was removed from that project. It's still part of the plan.
Alongside the pump track. I just couldn't find. Okay, but if you say it's on there, that's fine. That's all right. Right, okay. All right, so anything further on that? No, I'll put the motion then. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks very much. Another one ticked off. That brings us to public excluded. Would someone like to move that we go into public excluded for the reasons outlined? Shad's moved and Bill seconded. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you very much.